Hi, I'm Benni Knop from Noisy Post, and I've had lots of requests for an updated version of my 5.1 and 2.0 Davinci Resolve template. So today I'm releasing version 2. This is a free upgrade for anyone who's already purchased it, and for anyone who wants to check it out, go to noisypost.com.au/shop or go up here and you can purchase a copy yourself. I'm now going to go through the template and show you what's involved and how you can use it. Before I go through my template and show you how to use it or manipulate it so it works for your needs, I want to show you how to turn it into a preset. This is something that you should do once you've added the plugins you like to use and get it set up the way that works for your system. So you might want to delete some channels, you might want to add some more channels, but once you've done all that, we're going to turn it into a preset. I've got a wide screen, so I'm just showing you exactly what to do in the menu bar before we get started. So you want to go to the Fairlight tab and you go to Preset Library. Once you've clicked on Preset Library, you will be brought to this window. You want to make sure that you got Fairlight Configuration Preset tab open here, and you want Add New, and you want to call it whatever you want. You'll call it your own thing, but I'm going to put 5.1 and 2.0 temp. And so now, if you ever want to add this to a timeline, you can just click Apply, and that will add it to any timeline. So if you've already imported your AAF, you can put that in and it will populate the whole thing and all your setup. So I'm just going to go through the channels here. You can see we've got 12 channels of DX, which is dialogue. We've got ADR, and I've moved the way the buses work. So originally the buses were all at the end, but I've set up now so that you've got an LFE bus, so you can send things directly to your LFE. We've got reverbs of all different types. You'll see here there's ones with F and R in brackets, and that's front and rear. And I'll show you exactly why that is later. But we then have our effects. You'll see there's an M for mono, then there's an S for stereo. So you've got a bunch of mono stereo effects. We've got a sweetener. The SW stands for a sweetener. So this is your LFE sweetener. So that's where you put like your low rumbly sounds, and you'll probably, it's up to you, but you'll direct that straight to the LFE. But there's an LFE bus, which I'll show you that later as well. But the sweetener means you can put just low rumble sound effects just in that one channel to really emphasize the bottom end. We've got our reverbs, similar setup to our dialogue. We got Foley reverbs. And next we've got ambiences. So I've set up ambiences in an AB setup. So here we've got 2 monos, we've got a bunch of stereos. Some of these you could be rears. So if you're mixing in 5.1, you can send them to the rears, and you could change this if you want. So if you tend to have a couple of rears, you could make 7 and 8 and put it, rename the title, which you can double click and put surround in there or something so you can indicate what you want. There's also 2 5.1. And then I've got a B of the exact same thing. So you can AB for each scene, just add, your ambiences, and as one trails off, the next one comes in. So you've got AB there, and then you've also got reverbs. Again, one of these reverbs, or some of these, tend to be a 5.1. So you might have a stereo, mono, then a stereo, then you might have front and rear. So you'll have 2 stereo reverbs, because sometimes it sounds great to have 2 different stereo reverbs, and you might add a longer tail at the back or even at the front, depending on what you want to do. You can send front and rear reverbs there. We've got stereo MX channels, which is your music channels, and that'll be where you put your stems, your music stems for mixing. I've got an Upmixer channel, which is a 5.1 channel. We've got an LFE bus. Again, so if you want to send, you've got a bass sound, in your score, and you want to send that to an LFE bus, I'll again explain why I send to a bus rather than just sending it to the LFE channel on the panner. But yeah, we've got reverbs. Then we've got our VCAs. So we've got a VCA to control each group. So we've got our dialogue, DX, ADR. Then we've got the reverb, which is for both ADR and dialogue. Then we've got effects, reverb through effects, Foley. You can see here, you can see that. And then what I've got here is an all. So if you look over here, I've actually got this set up which you can change to small track mixer. So it makes everything just that little bit smaller. I'll show you the difference. You can still see everything you need to see, but I think it just tidies it up a little bit. But if we go across to our VCAs, if we control anything, like if I pull my DX down, you go across and you'll see the DX channels are down. That includes our LFE channel. So everything goes down together. So basically you can mix sort of broad brush strokes with your VCAs and you do finer movements with the individual faders. There's also an all, which brings everything down. So this VCA controls all the others. So if you get to the end of your production and you're a dB or two too loud, then you can actually use that fader to bring your whole production down. And yeah, it's a great way to just quickly pull everything down. So next we've got our bus channels, and this is where everything gets sent to. So we've got our DX, which obviously ADR, DX, and the reverbs all get sent to that. And that's going to be your stem that you bounce down so that you've got, you know, all your breakouts that you need for deliverables. It also gives people, gives the editor the channels they need to make a 5.1 or a stereo trailer. So they've got all the different channels broken out. So we've got the same format as all the others, so DX, FX, Foley, Ambience, MX. But then we also have an M&E, which is music and effects. And this is important for deliverables because if they do an international version of your film, they'll want this M&E track, and they basically just re-record the dialogue and put it over the top. The one thing that I have added as well is a full effects. So you notice here I've broken out all the different effects. This full effects is probably what you'll send as a deliverable, and that will have all the effects bar the music in that channel. But the reason I've done this is I like the idea of when I back up all my files, when I've got my masters and I put them away somewhere, the effects and Foley and ambience are separate. And also what's great is if you send that to the editor to do a trailer, they might just want a certain sound effect, but they don't want all the ambience and noise behind it. So they might just want to chuck that one explosion, but don't want to have all the other noise and ambience or even Foley fading in. It's just, they can find that one sound effect and it's there on that channel. So I've got that for both the 5.1, which you can see as 5.1 master. Then we have stereo versions of everything, and that's just a crash down of the 5.1 files there. So you'll see here how it's all organized. These are all the different bus outputs. And I've also added a couple of plugins here, but this is just the standard limiter, which I don't use myself, but I've put that there for anyone who hasn't purchased a limiter. But I'd suggest get yourself a nice limiter as well. It's a hard limiter so that nothing goes above it. But this is the limiter that comes with Davinci Resolve. You can see here I've set some settings, and then I've also added Waves Plus, WML Plus, which is just a great meter. This is set to OB59, which is our Australian broadcast standard. And if you want to purchase this, it'll be on sale at the moment because of Black Friday sales, or Waves tends to have a lot of sales. So if you want to help my channel, definitely check out the link in the description, or possibly up here as well. Up here, there you go, up there, to purchase that and help just support my channel. I do love this meter. It's very easy to read. And I also have the exact same on my stereo channel. And so when you bounce out, you know, if you're going to check your whole loudness level of your production, you can do it for both the stereo and the 5.1 version and make sure that they're all good. The other thing that I've done on all these other buses, so everything like the DX stem, you'll see here I've just turned this limiter on, and that just stops any peaks going over 0 on the stems there. And so you can see by the blue marker that they're on there, but I'm using this limiter for the two main outputs. So you'll see on our mixer here, I haven't added any plugins or anything because a lot of you will have different plugins on how you do things. But you'll see everything's outputted where it should go. Now here's all our sends. So you can obviously bring up the send window here. So if you're wanting to do any automation, you obviously can just use your mouse and do that here. The other thing that you can do is if you hold shift and scroll, you can make your window, make your tracks bigger, and we can go to automation here. You can click on your sends. We want to go to send A, that's on and off, sorry. And then we might go our send level, and you can literally just use a pen and draw it in. or as I showed you before, you can do fader movements there. But you want to make sure automation is on, which here there's automation will go send. So now we can send automation there, and then it means we can record automation that we, like if you're playing through, you can literally just write it here if you want, or if you've got the controller, even better, you can do that. So the one thing that I'd recommend, so you've got touch latch, or snap, sorry. You can do the trim, which is kind of an extra set of volume, but I don't tend to use trim on Davinci Resolve. I'll use it a bit more on Pro Tools, but we can check which kind of automation we want to ride. So I wouldn't suggest having them all on all the time, because you'll end up riding volume faders and other things that you don't want to add. So just pick the automation that you want to use at the time. So, you know, whether it's automation on your plugins, pan automation, and yeah, so just be very careful with that, because things can get pretty messy as well. So you can turn off your automation controls or turn off automation altogether so that you don't make any mistakes. Or, you know, if you had sends on and you're just testing something out, then you might ride some automation that you shouldn't. You've also got preview mode, which preview mode is similar to with Pro Tools. You can preview what you're doing automation wise and not write anything until you're ready to do so. All right, so all the different sends here, I'll show you. So obviously those sends, including the LFE, so the last one's your LFE bus. I'll talk about the different buses now, which is your LFE bus. So you can see here that I've got low air, which I would 100% recommend everyone buys. And again, it's always on sale. I think Black Friday sales are happening at the moment, but also go to the description below and purchase, support my channel and purchase LFE, low air. And this is something that I recommend everyone puts on their LFE channel, because if you end up sending, let's just say you got a sub sound, you know, whatever it is, an explosion, and you want to send a little bit more to the LFE to get that explosion big, you can get phase cancellation issues if you send the exact same sound from your left, right, or your center speaker into your LFE. You know, if someone's setup at home isn't as good, they might get noise cancellation, and then that'll mean you'll lose that bass sound. So, you know, I tend to set this pretty low. That's at 40 Hertz, but I change it depending on the project or how I'm feeling. If it's a real low explosion, you might even go lower and you get that full feeling of the rumble, but you might want it to be a bit more like a sub kick at 80 Hertz or something. And so you can add extra air to this, which is, it uses distortion, so harmonic distortion. So it's not a replica of the sound. It adds extra harmonics, which audibly give you that same, like just turning it up, but it makes it fuller and bigger. And the one thing I do, find the fine line of like going direct. So direct means how wet it is or how dry it is. And I'd turn that right back down, because again, you don't want that noise cancellation. So this is going to add more to your LFE. So I've got that set up there. I've also got the smallest amount of compression on that, which again, feel free to adjust that depending on what you're doing, but that just stops it from really peaking out. But I've also then rolled off, you can see I had to convolute this because their low pass filter doesn't go very low. And so I've EQ'd all this. So what's happening then is everything that you're sending to your LFE channel is only going to be low frequency information. It's not going to be anything high. And so if someone's got like a full range sub, you only get the good low stuff in that. So here you can see my different reverbs. So A and B are both mono, and then I've got stereo for the others, and we've got the stereo front and back, and you can see they're already panned. So you can add the same plugin to the two front and rear channels, but what you do is delay the second with pre-delay by about 30 milliseconds. So whatever your favorite stereo plugin is, whether you want to build a room or if it's for music and you want some variety, you can put the same reverb, but just put maybe a 30 millisecond pre-delay on the second one, and you might then want to change the character of it. I tend to maybe make the rear one a bit darker, so roll off some tops from some treble, or you might want to have the tail go longer, so as the sound disappears, it goes further behind you. You can do that with this front-rear setup. And then I've got a 5.1 reverb as well. Now, the thing to remember is all this can be changed. So if you go, obviously you can't see my menu at the top, but if you go to bus format, you can see here all of my buses in order from what they are on this, but you can see LFE. Here's all the different reverbs. So I can go through and you can change these to whatever you want. So for dialogue, I tend to need more mono channels because you want to match, you know, if it's ADR as well, you want to match the production audio, and that tends to be in mono. So you get mono reverb. So you might want to add a little bit more reverb to the space or match ADR to your production audio. But then for, say, you're in a cave or in a big church and you want to get that 5.1 surround sound, you can use the 5.1 here. But you can actually change these at any point if you want to. Same with all the other tracks. If you want to change any of these tracks, you know, to a stereo track. Oh, what's that audio doing? That's weird. You can just go here and change an audio track right there on the menu. So you just right click and you can change that to stereo and whatever you want to do. But that's how you change your buses. And so if you ever want to change a reverb or add more, you can do that. So if we go back to the Fairlight tab, you click bus format, you can just add more in. So you can add more reverbs if you want to. If you feel there's enough, that's great. And you can just manipulate what's there. But then if you add a bus, you want to add the bus in here. So if you've added a new bus, you call it whatever, DX Reverb G, it'll be there. You can click on it and add that to all your tracks. As a side note, working with reverbs in this template and how I work, what you should do is keep your reverbs the same on each channel. So your DX Reverb A and your effects Reverb A is going to be the same. Same with your Foley and ambience. You want all the same reverbs for a scene, right? So what we're going to do is, it's going to take a bit of time, but I'm going to quickly hide all the channels that aren't reverbs or buses. So let's just do this quickly. So we're going to hide all those. We'll ignore the music at the moment, so we don't need MX. So now I've got just our reverbs open here. And let's just say for our scene A, we add our reverb. I'm going to add Stratus 3D, and let's just look up kitchen. Let's see if there's something. Okay, so we've got a kitchen one, right? So we've got our plugin, and we've listened through our dialogue, and we're really happy with the way it sounds. So we've got our reverb, and what you do is hold Option, and we just drag that across. So to reverb, effects reverb A, Foley reverb A, and then maybe, you know, we'll put it in our ambience as well. And so we have the same reverb. So now if we send a bit of dialogue to some reverb and then our Foley to that reverb, we have the exact same sounding reverb for that scene. The reason we do it this way is the reverbs are then printed into the stems, and you don't have the dialogue going through your effects stem. Each reverb is in its own stem for its own group. So the effects reverb is going with the effects into the effects stem, but it's the same reverb as what the dialogue is using. So I would go through and set your reverbs for your scenes, and obviously by hiding the extra channels, it's just easy to drag these across. So the only thing with this is if we change settings in this reverb here, that won't go across to this reverb. So if you decide you don't like that sound, what you're going to have to do is change the reverb, and then we're going to delete this one, and then holding Option, we just drag it across. So we've made changes, and we want to do that to each one of those. So it's a bit messy, but that's actually the only way I see you can do it in Resolve. So it's a little unfortunate that that's how it goes. And it's the same with, say, like the low air. When you've got the low air happening in your scenes, you know, you're going to have to do the same thing. So if you're going to change the low air settings to really fit the film or the sounds that you're going for, you've got to do the same thing. So you can drag that across, and then we delete the old one. And that's also how you just, you know, copy plugins from one dialogue channel to the next. You can do it that way as well. hope that is helping you. So most of it is pretty like same as you go through. Like Foley though is all mono files. I don't tend to use any stereo Foley. Foley should really be down the center, or you can pan it with things, but they tend to be just mono files. Ambiences there, as I said, there are some 5.1 spots for you to do ambiences there. So next I want to show you groups. I've already set up a bunch of groups, but you can add more yourself by just adding groups here. So groups are in the tracks tab here, and you can just click that and add any tracks you want to groups, or you can select tracks here and then click add to a group. That's up to you. Once you add a group, you can select what options that you want to control. Now at the moment there's no options for plugins, unfortunately, because that would be great because we could group our reverbs and things. But unfortunately we can't. But I've set up all these other channels and they're set to manipulate everything. So if you want to, let's just say we want to change or mute all of our DX reverbs. If we click that and you just click mute, they're all muted. And these can be triggered on and off with a short key. So if you press Command on a Mac, these are just numbers. So you just can go through and mute and unmute them there. I don't know if, yeah, so you can't do it for anything other than up to the first 9 because you're using your number pad, sorry. So it's Command and the number pad numbers. So you can use 0 is all, and then, you know, we can go through and turn those on and off. But that'll help. So if you want to like, for all your DX channels, if we want to send some reverbs, you can see there all the reverbs are going up together. Or, you know, if we want to pre-fade our LFE for our dialogues, you can do that. Now, a quick tip with, I've got an LFE channel for my DX, but I will pretty much never use it, except if I was doing like a booming dragon voice or something and you wanted to have that low rumble, you can add it then. But other than that, don't use your DX channel. It's kind of one of those things that you'd use it on a giant monster or a robot or something like that. But they are our groups. So we've got one set up for each of our, you know, main sound groups and then the reverbs themselves. So it just means you can quickly add reverb to all your channels for a scene if you want to, and then you can fine tune it depending on the sound. But that's the same with EQs and stuff. So if you want to grab a bunch of EQs, you can do that. But it's really easy to add more groups, and you just select channels here and click add group. Feel free to change those as you like. If you're on, say, TV and all you get is stereo music tracks and you want to be able to mix them in 5.1, but you don't have the stems to really do that well, I've got an Upmixer set up on this template. So you'll see on the bus here, I've got the UM266, which is Waves Upmixer. At the moment, you'll get it for a steal, and it tends to be on sale quite a bit. Use the link in the description below and you can purchase it there. This is great for just being able to, like, you know, if you want to lift the rear information or take out everything out of the center, so it's only kind of quad with a sub, you can do that. You can do quite a bit with this. You can also add low air. So if you want to add a bit more oomph to your bass and also not get that phase cancellation, you can do that as well. But I'm a PENTEO user and I love PENTEO, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to get it to work in Davinci Resolve. So I'm in chats with them. I'm hoping we'll get that fixed soon and I'll send you an update. But PENTEO just sounds amazing, and you can go all the way up to like 714 Dolby Atmos, and how it crashes back down to stereo is just... And so I would recommend getting a better one. But at the moment, this is a good cheap option that will work in Fairlight. So the way you send your music to the Upmixer, here we've got output set as our MX stem, but we can just click on that and you just go to the MX Upmixer. And so now that will be sending directly to the Upmixer and going to 5.1. So in the bus format, you're going to notice here that I've got 5.1 film. And the reason I've set it up this way, which film is technically LCR and not LRC, so that's your left, right, center. So all like the newer formats with, say, Dolby Atmos tends to be left, right first and then center. But I've set this up as left, center, right, particularly because of the Upmixer. So feel free if you want to go LRC, so left, center, right, instead, you can go back and change all these to just 5.0 and not film. Because depending on your sound effects that you're working with as well, if you chuck sound effects in here, it may get confused with what's your center channel. So just be wary that it's set up at the moment as 5.1 film, and that's LCR in the order of the channels. And I would also just note that when you're exporting your buses, which I'll show you how to do, you want to make sure that you either do them as separate mono files or at least indicate what the channel order is when you're exporting it and sending it to your editor. So the other thing to note is if we go through to our preferences, you want to make sure you've got your output set up here. So this is under your video audio, your output setup is set up here, and then you can set your channel order here. So see, you've got front, left, right. This is obviously set up for Dolby Atmos, but you want to make sure that your channels and your output for your speakers are set up properly. So I'm using Sphere, which is a monitor controller, a software one, but if I was setting up my speakers, you will see channel 1, 2, 3, even though there's the numbers here. So you can order your output according to what's there. And so you can also set up your near and mains. So if you want to set up headphones or something as your alternate output, you can do that as well. But you just want to make sure you're set up for format at least as 5.1. And here you can set up so you can select film so that the channel order is exactly the way it should be according to your speakers. But you can also set this to non-film and then set your speakers up to LRC. What I'd suggest you do to make sure everything's playing right is put some pink noise on your dialogue channel and pan around and make sure that you're hearing it in all the different speakers the way it should before you start mixing or anything like that. Lastly, I want to show you how you can export all your stems and masters to send off for delivery. So what we want to do is set an in and out point of our film. So from the 2-pop onto the end, or, depending on how you're syncing it with the editor, they may have given you a countdown. You can make sure you sync all that stuff into your timeline. So once you've set your in and out points, we go to audio only. You call it whatever you want. I'd recommend that you put the channel order into it. So if you've gone with film or if you've gone with the standard 5.1, so the LCR, LFE, LSRS, but put that in the channel name, in the actual title if you want. Set location, we want single clip. You want to make sure when you go to the audio tab, the audio export should be clicked. You want to go wave, PCM is the file type that we want. Make sure it's set to 24-bit. You want to set this, click the render track per channel. And what that does is for every bus, you'll get a separate audio file. The other thing is you can render as discrete audio tracks. And what that'll do is it'll export each separate channel as its own WAV file. That's really up to you. And what it'll do is it'll label what's left, center, right, LFE, all that sort of stuff. Now, for say like a DCP, depending on who's putting it together and what they're using to put it together, sometimes I've had the editor request, or the guys putting it together request mono files because they input each mono file separately into the DCP. So you might want to do that. You might want to do both. So you could send the full, everything embedded in the audio files, or you might want to do separate discrete mono tracks. I'll leave that up to you how you want to use it. But the one thing to remember is if you send someone a 5.1 WAV file and they just put it straight into Premiere or back in Resolve, the channel order may be different to what they use. So if you say to them, I've made 5.1 film, or it looks like it should be on the file name here, if it's not, put it on there. And when they put it back into Premiere, make sure that they're using the film format or the same as you've done. And so here we want to select all our channels. So we want to go through, and we're going to go through and add all our different stems. So I'm going to do it in order. So we've got effects, and then we're going to go Foley. Then we're going to go, this is messy, but ambience. We'll go MX. I want it in the order that I've already been working in so that I know exactly what's there. M&E, oh, that's stereo. So let's fix that. I'm a bit annoyed that this isn't already in order, but what are you going to do about it? And then we want our full effects, which I think was down the bottom. Then we're going to go to stereo master, DX, lovely, time consuming. And then this is in order. So I don't know why that's in order, but it's great. And then we want our final full effects. So now we've got our master, we've got all our stems, we've got our M&E, we've got our full effects, which again, make sure when you send this stuff off, you're just very clear of what is what and why you've done it the way you have. And so they know that if they want to make a trailer, they can use all those stems, but they might want to, you know, if they're going to archive things, they might want it all, they might just want the full effects. It depends what your deliverables are, because a lot of times they don't ask for all these separately, for the effects and Foley and ambient separate, but it's good, I think, for you to have as well. So if you ever need to like redo something in the project and you don't have any of the files, you can always bring that back in and remix stuff. So once that's all set up, we just go add to render queue, and there it is. You can click render and render that all out. A quick side note, after filming this video, I went back and did some playing and realized the Upmixer actually prefers the SMPTE format rather than film, which is left, center, right, LFE, LSRS. And so I've gone back through and changed all the bus formatting. So you'll see here, my 5.1 reverbs are actually just 5.0. I didn't mention that earlier because you don't really want any reverb in your subs anyway, in your LFE. So all the reverbs here are 5.0 now. And you'll see here the Upmixer is just 5.1, which is SMPTE, not film, including all the buses as well. So when you export, it's always going to be LRC, LFE, LSRS. So again, it's always great to label your files so that whoever you're sending it to knows, but just so you know, that's the format now that it all runs in. So just again, if you're setting up your preferences here with your speaker setup, you know, you can choose whether you want to go 5.1 or 5.1 film. Obviously, I've got mine in Dolby Atmos, but I'd suggest you go 5.1 because then your left-right is channel 1 and 2, which is great for if you're working in stereo as well. And then you've got your center, LFE, LSRS there. So one thing to note is for your production, before you export, that you are set to your deliverable spec. And so you can either do that by playing through your production, checking the meters here. You can export it and then get your master file and normalize that and find out how much up or down gain you need to. The other thing you can do as well is if you don't want to purchase WLM by waves, you can go through your settings down the bottom there. And if you're in the Fairlight tab, here you can change your meters. So you can go with VU meters or anything, but if you want loudness, you can set your target levels and that changes what your metering does here. I hope you found this video on my template helpful. If you got any questions, write them in the comments below. If you want to purchase a copy, head to noisypost.com.au/shop or click up here. For those of you who've already purchased a copy of my template, you can go back to your original email and download version 2. I want to thank you all for watching and I'll see you on the next one.